Hello and welcome to Right Sports Talk. My name is Zach. We are officially at the final week of the NFL regular season. In week 17, I went 12 and 4 with my picks, giving me an overall record of 168 and 88 on the season. Now let's get into some of these picks for this final week of the NFL regular season. Week 18 kicks off on Saturday with a doubleheader of AFC North action. First game is the Cleveland Browns, who are 3-13, taking on the Baltimore Ravens, who are 11-5. The Cleveland Browns coming off of a loss to the Miami Dolphins this past week. The Baltimore Ravens coming off of a very dominant victory over the Houston Texans. The Browns have really not looked good down the stretch. They have really been lackluster at quarterback with Dorian Thompson-Robinson starting the past two games. Obviously, a few games ago, Nick Chubb went out with a foot injury. Jerome Ford actually got injured this past weekend against the Dolphins. So their offense is kind of limping into the end of the season. And this Baltimore Ravens team is looking very good. Lamar Jackson broke the NFL record for career rushing yards by a quarterback this past week against the Texans. This offense looks to be clicking. Lamar Jackson is making a very good case to be a back-to-back NFL MVP with how he's been playing lately. And the Baltimore Ravens have something to play for in this game. It's a case of they win this game, they win the division, and I believe will lock in the 3 seed in the AFC. So because of how they have looked lately and they are actually playing for something, I do think the Ravens get the victory here. The Browns could pull off an upset. They did it earlier this season against the Ravens. But right now, with how these two teams have been going lately, I think the Baltimore Ravens get out of here with a victory and lock up the AFC North. Next up, you have the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 8-8, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 10-6. The Cincinnati Bengals coming off of an overtime victory over the Denver Broncos, and the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off of a loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bengals have actually been playing very, very good football as of late. Joe Burrow has continued to look like he could be in the MVP conversation if this Bengals team had, just a few more wins and were in more, were locked into the playoffs. Obviously, Jamar Chase continues to play very well. And this Bengals defense has actually been playing better over the past few weeks than they were at the beginning of the season. And this Steelers team has really been, kind of limping into the end of the season with this real gauntlet that they've had against the Eagles and then the Ravens and then the Chiefs. They have not been playing their best football as of late. So I do think the Cincinnati Bengals will get the victory here. These two teams obviously met earlier in the season, and it was a very close shootout victory for the Steelers. So I do expect that this could be another very close game, as it is, AFC North and anything could happen. But I think because the Bengals are still competing for an AFC playoff spot, and the Steelers do still have something to play for. Even if the Ravens do win, the Steelers are still competing to be, the 5 seed as opposed to the 6 seed in the AFC. If they're the 5 seed, then they would get to play the Texans in the first round, and if they're the 6 seed, they have to go play the Ravens again. But right now, the Bengals are really red hot, so I do think the Cincinnati gets out of Pittsburgh with a victory. Now, moving on to the Sunday games. First up, you have the Carolina Panthers, who are 4-12, taking on the Atlanta Falcons, who are 8-8. Carolina continues to look very good. They have played very well. They did take a bit of a step back against Tampa Bay, allowing Baker Mayfield to throw 5 touchdowns against them. And Atlanta is still competing for their playoff lives. They need this victory to help keep them in the hunt to win the NFC South. Atlanta coming off of a loss to the Washington Commanders, which if they had won that game, it would have been as simple as they win and they're in the playoffs for this game. But unfortunately, even if they win here, they need some help with the Buccaneers to lose. But Michael Penix has been playing very well in his 2 starts for Atlanta. This offense looks to be clicking. Bijan Robinson continues to play well. This defense has been playing very good as of late. Their pass rush has been playing much better than they have at all through the season. So I do think that the Atlanta Falcons get the victory here and can keep their playoff hopes alive if the Buccaneers lose later in the day. Next up, you have the Washington Commanders, who are 11-5, taking on the Dallas Cowboys, who are 7-9. The Commanders, obviously coming off their victory over the Atlanta Falcons, in which they clinched a playoff spot, and right now are sitting at the 6th seed in the NFC. With a win, they clinch the 6th seed and will play the 3 seed in the wild card round. If they lose this game, they could fall down to the 7th seed and possibly have to play the Eagles in the wild card round. And Dallas Cowboys coming off of a loss to the Eagles in which they were decimated. They just did not look all that good. So right now, I do think the Commanders get the victory here. Commanders are red hot right now. Jaden Daniels is playing at an absolute great level and looks like he could be is currently front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year. This Commanders offense has been playing very well. Their defense has been playing underrated all season. They have tremendously better than they were last season. And this Cowboys team is very beaten up. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb didn't play last week. He's still not playing this week. They sat him down for the rest of the season. This Dallas Cowboys team actually recently released running back Ezekiel Elliott, so he can try to sign with a contender. I think they've kind of, they're pretty much done for the season. I think the Commanders, because they are still competing for seeding, and obviously this is a divisional game, and everybody in the NFC East absolutely hates the Cowboys. I think the Washington Commanders get out of here with a victory. Next up, you have the the Chicago Bears, who are 4-12, taking on the Green Bay Packers, who are 11-5. The Chicago Bears coming off of a loss to the Seattle Seahawks in a very low-scoring, not very exciting game. And the Green Bay Packers coming off of a loss to the Minnesota Vikings, in which their offense unfortunately started very slowly, only scoring 3 points in the first half, and then in the second half really picked it up, but ultimately could not overcome their very slow first half and falling short of the Minnesota Vikings. The Green Bay Packers are also competing for seeding. They are currently the 7th seed in the NFC, and if they win, then they could bump up to the 6th seed, but need the Commanders to lose. Both these games are happening at the same time, so as the games are going on, the Packers do still have something to play for. This Bears team has just not been playing well. Although it isn't a divisional matchup, and every game this week is a divisional matchup, so all of them could be close. The Bears have played pretty well against NFC North opponents, but I think the Green Bay Packers are too good, and they get the victory here and keep their hopes alive for the 6th seed. Next up, you have the Houston Texans, who are 9-7, taking on the Tennessee Titans, who are 3-13. The Texans coming off of their just getting destroyed by the Baltimore Ravens, where they couldn't do anything. All they could get was somehow they tackled Derrick Henry for a safety, and that was the only points they scored in their game against the Ravens. And the Tennessee Titans are coming off of a loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Titans continue to struggle. So I do think that the Houston Texans can get the victory here, although they have been struggling as of late. I think they're still a better team than the Titans. This Titans team has a lot to figure out at the quarterback position. They also could be without both their starting running backs, as Tony Pollard has been dealing with, I believe, an ankle injury, and Tajay Spears left the Jaguars game with a concussion, so that doesn't help them out. So I think the Houston Texans can get the victory here going into the playoffs. Next up, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 4-12, taking on the Indianapolis Colts, who are 7-9. The Jaguars, as I mentioned, coming off their victory over the Tennessee Titans, which that was their series sweep of Tennessee. They beat them both times they played them. And the Indianapolis Colts coming off of a brutal loss to the New York Giants, which actually knocked the Colts out of playoff contention. So they have nothing really to play for right now. In that game, Anthony Richardson did not play. It was Joe Flacco who got the start at quarterback. So Anthony Richardson was dealing with an injury. Right now, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars get the victory here. I think Doug Peterson might be coaching for his job right now. And this Jaguars team has actually looked pretty good. Brian Thomas continues to play very well. Mac Jones has been very surprising the past few weeks. And although he did not have the best game against Tennessee, he still played well enough for them to get the victory. Their defense has been playing pretty good. So I do think the Jacksonville Jaguars can get the win over the Indianapolis Colts. Next up, you have the Buffalo Bills, who are 13-3, taking on the New England Patriots, who are 3-13. The Buffalo Bills coming off of a very dominant victory over the New York Jets, in which they locked up the number 2 seed in the AFC with that victory. And you have the New England Patriots coming off a very lopsided loss to the Los Angeles Chargers. The Bills do not look like they're going to play starters for very long in this game, if at all. Josh Allen could maybe get a series just to keep up his consecutive start streak for the Bills. For the New England Patriots, I don't know if they continue to play Drake May for this game. I kind of hope they sit him down so that there's no risk of him getting injured this late in the season for a game that really is meaningless. Right now, the New England Patriots are sitting with the number 1 overall draft pick, and as a Patriots fan, I never want to root for them to lose, but I don't really see a way that, even playing against the Bills' backups, I don't see a way the New England Patriots win this football game. For the Patriots, their other rookie quarterback, Jalen Milroe, looks like he'll be active for this game, so it might be Milroe and Jacoby Brissett as the 2 quarterback options for this week. And obviously, the Buffalo Bills, if they do start Josh Allen, it'll be for maybe just their first series, and then it'll probably be Mitchell Trubisky. But even against the backups, I think, even with the backups playing, I think the Buffalo Bills can still get the victory here, going into the playoffs. Next up, you have the New York Giants, who are 3-13, taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 13-3. The Giants, coming off of their surprising victory over the Indianapolis Colts, which actually knocked them out of the number 1 overall pick slot for the draft. And the Philadelphia Eagles, coming off of their very big victory over the Dallas Cowboys. In that game, Saquon Barkley became, I believe, the 9th running back in NFL history to rush for 2,000 yards in a season. So he's currently sitting at 2,005. The Eagles have announced that Saquon will sit for this game. So it looks like Saquon's going to be down. I don't imagine Jalen Hurts will play in this game. At quarterback, so probably could be Kenny Pickett again, could be Ian Booker. But even with backups playing, I still think the Philadelphia Eagles get the victory here. I think Kenneth Gainwell is a very good running back for them. They also still have very good wide receiver talent. They're still very good defensively. I just can't see the Giants winning this game, especially in Philadelphia. So I do think the Eagles get the victory here. Next up, you have the New Orleans Saints, who are 5-11, taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 9-7. New Orleans actually coming off of a loss to the Las Vegas Raiders this past week. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming off of a pretty dominant victory over the Carolina Panthers. As I mentioned, Baker Mayfield throwing 5 touchdown passes. The Buccaneers, very simple for them in this game. They win this game, they win the NFC South. Not going to waste a whole lot of time on this. I think the Buccaneers win this. I think they clinch the NFC South. And with a win, depending on how things go in the Rams game later, they have a chance to move to possibly the 3 seed as opposed to the 4 seed in the NFC. And the 3 seed, I think, is a better alternative for whoever clinches that, because the 3 seed gets either Green Bay or Washington in the first round. The 4 seed will have to play a 5 seed, which will either be the Minnesota Vikings or the Detroit Lions, both with 13 wins on the season. Whoever wins that matchup. So I do think the Buccaneers get the win here. I think they win their division and hold out hope that they can get that 3 seed. Next up, you have the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 15-1, taking on the Denver Broncos, who are 9-7. The Chiefs coming off of a victory to the Pittsburgh Steelers. which I believe locked up the number one seed for them. So it looks like they're possibly going to play backups in this game. And the Denver Broncos, coming off of their overtime loss to the Cincinnati Bengals, they are still competing for the playoffs. If the Broncos win this football game, they clinch a playoff spot. So because the Chiefs will be most likely playing backups with Carson Wentz starting at quarterback, and the Denver Broncos are still competing for a playoff spot, I do think the Broncos get the victory here and are able to lock up that final playoff spot for the AFC. Next up, you have the Los Angeles Chargers, who are 10-6, taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 4-12. The Chargers, like I mentioned, coming off their victory over the New England Patriots. The Raiders coming off their victory over the Saints. Now, in that Patriots game, the Chargers got J.K. Dobbins back at running back, and their offense looked so much better than it had in the past few weeks in the run game. The Chargers did lock up a playoff spot with that victory, but they still have a chance to improve their seeding to be the 5 seed in the AFC with a victory here. And if they get the 5 seed, they would play the Houston Texans in the first round. So I do think that they get the victory. They get the 5 seed, and they get to play the Houston Texans as opposed to playing the Baltimore Ravens. The Chargers offense has looked very good. They look so much better with J.K. Dobbins back at running back. Their defense continues to play very good. And with the Raiders, although they did play good against the Saints, Brock Bowers broke the rookie record for receiving yards by a tight end. Aiden O'Connell has played decent football. He's a good but not great quarterback. But I do think the Chargers get the victory here because they do kind of have more to play for. So I think the Chargers wind up with the win. Next up, you have the Seattle Seahawks, who are 9-7, taking on the Los Angeles Rams, who are 10-6. The Seahawks obviously coming off their victory over the Chicago Bears, and the Rams coming off of a victory over the Atlanta Falcons. Unfortunately for the Seahawks, because the Commanders actually won their game over Atlanta last week due to strength of schedule or strength of victory or something, it gave the Rams the NFC West. So after they beat Arizona. So unfortunately, this will not be for the NFC West title. However, I do still think the Seahawks will play this game very tough, as obviously it is the Rams, it is interdivision. Expect that the Seahawks will still come out and try to get the victory here. Try to give the Rams a loss going into the playoffs. However, I do think the Rams get the victory. Their offense has been playing very well. I feel like I say this every week, but Puka Nacua is playing very well. Kyron Williams had a pretty good game against Arizona, and this defense continues to play very well, getting some very key turnovers against Arizona this past weekend. So I do think the Los Angeles Rams get the victory over Seattle, and I believe that will get them the 3 seed in the NFC. Next up, you have the Miami Dolphins, who are 8-8, taking on the New York Jets, who are 4-12. Dolphins coming off their victory over the Cleveland Browns. The Jets coming off their devastating loss to the Buffalo Bills. The Dolphins, and this game is going on the same time as the Broncos game. The Dolphins are competing with the Broncos for that final playoff spot. So if Miami wins and Denver loses, Miami sneaks in and gets the 7th seed for the AFC. It looks like for the Jets, Aaron Rodgers is going to start this game. He did not finish the game against the Bills. He may have benched himself, but he wound up being benched, and Tyrod Taylor went in and played very well against the Bills at the end. But it looks like it could be Aaron Rodgers starting for the Jets at quarterback. So I actually like their odds less with Aaron Rodgers, as he has been not playing like the Aaron Rodgers of old this year. He has looked like a very old quarterback coming off of an injury, and he just hasn't been able to get it really going this season. So I do think that the Miami Dolphins are able to get the victory here, and again keep competing for that final AFC playoff spot if my prediction for the Broncos to win is wrong. Next up, you have the San Francisco 49ers, who are 6-10, taking on the Arizona Cardinals, who are 7-9. The Niners coming off of a very close loss to the Detroit Lions, in which it was very much a shootout in that game. But ultimately, they had a couple of turnovers that wind up costing them. And the Arizona Cardinals coming off of their loss to the Los Angeles Rams. Both these teams have had, especially the Niners, have had a very down year. The Cardinals have had a very disappointing month of December. We're going into the month, they had a chance to compete for the NFC West, ultimately had some losses that knocked them out of contention. I actually am going to go with the Cardinals to get the victory here, though. The Niners, although they did play well against the Detroit Lions, Brock Purdy did leave that game with an elbow injury. It looks like there's no nerve damage to his elbow, but still don't know how that will affect him for this game. Also, this game is being held in Arizona, which is one of the also key pieces that swings me in the Cardinals' direction. But I do think that the Arizona Cardinals get the victory here. Next up on Sunday Night Football, the final Sunday night game of the regular season, you have the Minnesota Vikings, who are 14-2, taking on the Detroit Lions, who are also 14-2. This game has the most stakes of any game of the week. That's why it is on Sunday Night Football. The winner of this game not only wins the NFC North, they get the number 1 seed in the entire NFC. The Minnesota Vikings coming off of their victory over the Green Bay Packers. The Detroit Lions coming off of their victory to the San Francisco 49ers. Both these teams have been playing very well. The Minnesota Vikings defensively were able to slow down the Packers' run game and slow down their offense for the most part in the first half. Obviously, in the second half, they did give up 3 touchdowns, but ultimately found a way to get the win. The Detroit Lions winning their shootout with the San Francisco 49ers, in which Kirby Joseph got 2 interceptions that were the key difference maker for them in that game. I think this game will be tremendously close. Should be a very fun game to watch. But I ultimately think that this could be the game that the amount of Lions injuries, especially on their defense, finally catch up to them. I think the Minnesota Vikings get the victory here and clinch the 1 seed in the NFC. I think this could be a game which Sam Darnold could have a pretty good game. I think this Vikings defense could be able to slow down Jahmyr Gibbs in this running game. There have been a very good run defense all year. This Minnesota defense continues to play very well. So I think that they ultimately get the victory here and clinch up the number 1 seed in the NFC, pushing the Lions down to the 5 seed. So I think the Vikings get the win, get the 1 seed, win the NFC North. So those are my picks for the week. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, who you guys think is going to win. Obviously, the game I'm most looking forward to is this Vikings-Lions game, as it does have the most at stake for the whole week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.